Hello everyone, O Silent Reaper here, and today we're going to show you on how to do custom water cooling. This video will explain everything that you need to know about water cooling and the parts that you need for water cooling. Here today I'm going to show you on how to do water cooling. There are many different ways on how to do this. I'm going to show you on bending these. I'm going to show you bad piping. I'm going to show you good piping. And I'm also going to show you on how to pretty much put them together. So, there are many different things that you can use for water cooling. Water cooling is very kind of tedious and also time consuming. Just saying. Most of the time you can get it probably done within an hour if you know exactly how to do it and get your tubing properly installed and make sure there's no leaks. Water cooling is very fun, and also water cooling is very unique. You can make your own custom loops and also your own custom designs, which is pretty fun, I'd say. Now, you technically don't need water cooling. A lot of people do like to go to water cooling just because of the fact of it looks cool, and also it does cool your CPU down a bit. And it does help, especially with overclocking. If you are wanting to overclock, I advise you to get a water cooler. That's my opinion. I fell in love with water cooling the day I started doing it. Now, there are different types of piping you can get. There's acrylics, I'm pretty sure. There is also soft tubing, and then there is hard tubing. I more am on the hard tubing, but hard tubing does take a lot longer timing. Soft tubing is a lot simpler and a lot easier in my opinion. If you want to go with soft tubing, I say go for it. If you want to go with hard tubing, I say go for it. With soft tubing, you will not need the heat gun. Heat gun is only for hard tubing. Now, with all your different tubings, I do advise to do some research on the internet. Make sure, you do your research so then you can see what you would rather more prefer, because there was a time I went and did a water cooling PC loop and I messed it all up, and it was leaking and it was terrible. I'm just glad none of the components on the inside of the computer pretty much went bad. Also, I'm going to let you know, if it is your first time doing it, I'm going to tell you right now, you're better off having a friend come and help you. I had one of my friends come help me, and he is an awesome guy for helping me. You know who you are. Thank you, buddy, for helping me with my very first PC custom loop. Now, when it comes to custom PC looping, it's honestly a lot easier than most people think. You got your bad piping, and then you got your good piping. And then you also, I go with Thermaltake when it comes to bending the tubes. Like, for example, sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's easier just to go by hand. I guess you could say use the tools, or you can use other different tools. There's a lot of different methods on how you can bend these tubings. Now, when you do get the tubing, you're most likely, if you just got a whole new setup of tubing, you're most likely going to be getting a water block. Now, a water block is what goes on to your CPU when it is inside the chip. I will talk to you in another video about thermal paste and which ones I prefer and which ones I choose and what I like. But just do your research, make sure you see what you would rather prefer and everything else. Now, with hard tubing does require this little soft tube thing here. It's like a silicone thing here. And then you're also going to need something like this. This is a cutter for the tubing, so then you can easily cut. And if I can get this in here. So, for example, let's say it's too big to go in the PC where you exactly want it. Now, what you would do is you would obviously put this in here and tighten it. Sometimes there are a lot easier tools than this. Just saying, there's it's just PVC piping. Like, this is just PVC cutter. It's just made for this one. You can get it on Amazon. You can get most of this stuff on Amazon. Unfortunately, this is my buddy's. And then this silicone thing here, you usually would put soap, any kind of liquid soap, on it, so then you can actually put it on the inside of the tubing. Like so. There's no soap on here. Do not do this dry. I'm going to tell you right now, don't attempt it. Now when you put this in here, this is when you use the heat gun. Now the heat gun would go stand upright. Make sure if you need to, put a little bit of tape underneath of that. Yeah, that's just, because most of the time some of these just don't like to stay up. I'm surprised it even did that there. Anyway. So the main thing what you would want to do is you would literally turn it on, let heat come out, and then you would literally just roll it like a hot dog. Just make sure you're not staying in one simple little spot. Okay? What you would want to do is stay up a little bit, maybe about 6 inches, and then just roll it like a hot dog and go back and forth. And then eventually you'll start to feel that bend. When you feel that bend, it might not be just ready yet. This is where it gets tedious. You might have to sit here for a while and you're looking to yourself, oh hey, it looks done. But then when you bend it, it might look like something like that with all the bubbles. Now if you see bubbles into it, you're better off just pitching this. It's junk. Or you could cut it off. Because those bubbles are eventually, it's just not good. It just doesn't look appealing, especially in your water loop. You're going to see it, and it's just going to look bad, and there could be even tiny holes. Now what I did was to test these out is I put distilled water through these, and then I would plug each end with my thumb, and then I would shake it back and forth just to see if there was any leakage coming out of them. Now if it's really bad, I advise you to not use it. I advise you to get a different tubing and just try to redo that certain bend that you wanted to do. Now I'm going to show you exactly on how to use the heat gun with the silicone and, well, I have 2 pipings here. With the silicone and also with the soap inside, I'm going to show you how to do the bend with hard tubing. I'm also going to show you on everything you need for the inside of the tubing. Now the inside of the tubing, once you cut it, it will have little burrs on the end. Hopefully you can see that. The little burrs. Now most people would either go and get, there's more stuff in there. They would go and get one of these things. It's an out and an in for the outer ring and for the inner ring. So if you have those burrs, they would get the in ring, pop it inside, and just twist. Shaving it down, that's all it's doing. And then that was the inner ring. Now the inner ring looks a little different. Just make sure before you even put all this together to rinse these out. I do not advise using tap water. I would use distilled water for your loop if you want to go that route. Or there are other different features like coloring. I recommend going just straight through Amazon and just purchasing your pre-mixed liquid, because I have been using Promo Chill for a long time, not affiliated at all. I've been using them for a while, about a couple years, and I would rather use these. These are just, the product is amazing. It's already colored, it's already got all of its features in there and everything else. Back to the tubing. Now, on the outside you would need pretty much the outer ring to be sanded down as well. This is literally what it does. It's a sander, kinda. It polishes it up, cleans it up nice and neat. But sometimes these do not work that great. So what did I do? I went and got sandpaper. Now the sandpaper makes things definitely a lot simpler and a lot easier. For me, you might have a different opinion. Maybe it might not work for you, maybe it will. You never know until you try. So the main thing is I got a decent grit Not entirely too sure which grit this is, but it's pretty cool. It's semi-fine, semi-coarse, so it's definitely, you can feel it. I don't know if you can hear it. So what I do is usually I will get the sandpaper down here on the table or on your leg, anywhere you feel comfortable, and then just eventually after, just take a peek and see how it looks on the, that's just going to get a smooth surface. Now if you want to work on the inside, this is a little bit more of a pain. You would put it on the inside like this, and you would grab your finger right there and then push and then roll it around. So all you do, just roll it around, make sure you got a good fine. That happens from time to time. Make sure you get some extras. And like I said, make sure you clean this out with some distilled water. And then also we have our fittings. Fittings are very important, especially with hard tubing. Soft tubing, I do believe their fittings are a little different. Make sure you look into making sure it's for hard tubing, because if you use a soft tubing for a hard tubing, I don't think things are going to go well. Because I think soft tubing, I've never done soft tubing personally. I just looked into hard tubing and I was like, yo, I'm done, I'm gone. They sold me on this. So with your fittings, you have these O-rings. O-rings are very important. Make sure you definitely keep them. There are a whole bunch of different colors and different selections on which ones you want to use. Now, the way this goes, you grab your piping, you grab your fitting, and also what you would do is you would grab your, this is part of the fitting, and then you pop it in there. But first things first, and what you do is, there are directions usually in the box on how to do this. So you would grab your tubing, go on the outside perimeter, and then you would get this O-ring. Put the O-ring on. It's going to seal it up in there. Make sure no liquid goes in there. Then you would want to grab your fitting, little fitting here. There are O-rings on the inside to make sure no leaks. Pop it right on. Make sure you got a flush. If not, most of the time when you screw it on, it will go flush. And then that O-ring stays on the inside. Pop this right up. And there you go. And there is also a bottom piece. The bottom piece looks like this. This is Thermaltake, by the way. I'll put it in the link in the description. Then you would screw it on right here. Make sure you have a decent connection. Make sure you do not cross thread. That would be bad. Cross threading is a very pain. And then there you go. And then you would screw it on. Just like that. Pretty simple. Blow on it. And then you can definitely feel like if there's pressure, it's usually what I did. If there's pressure, there's no leakage, no air coming out, then you definitely have a solid connection. Another thing that you would definitely want to look into is also called a jumper. A jumper is a very easy way to test your loop without powering anything on. Just powering your water pump. This is the 24 pin that would connect technically. You would get your 24 pin from your power supply, you'd plug it into your motherboard, and that powers the whole thing up, your CPU, everything. But I advise getting one of these, especially if you are a beginner. It definitely will help and save you on a lot. The jumper, you would literally just plug it in to where your motherboard is, technically where the wire comes out. You plug it into your motherboard. You would just, instead of plugging it into your motherboard, you would plug it into this little thing, and then what it's going to do is it's just going to power your water pump on anything that's technically kind of connected to the motherboard or also to just the power supply. But it won't power on your motherboard, or it won't power on your RAM. It won't power on literally the computer at all. It'll just work your other electronics. Also, on another note, make sure the tubing that you have in there fits the dimensions of the case, and make sure you have enough room. And I would honestly write on a piece of paper your blueprints and also your layout to make sure it will fit your PC case. Make sure you have enough room in between the gaps of where your glass would go, and also make sure that the top part will fit to where your fans have enough room and space. Also, these little fittings, sorry if it got a little dark, these little fittings are a great saver. There we go, brighten it up for you. Now these things right here are fittings. They act like fittings. This is by Bits Powered. Sorry if you can't see that, it's Bits Powered. I'll put it in the link in the description. These do help seal up to when you want to drain your water cooling. It is recommended to drain it, I believe, every 6 months to a year, and then put new cooling in there. Now this is kind of rigged on my part. I don't recommend doing this, but it worked for me. I'm eventually going to be changing this out. Now this is actually piping from Home Depot that I used. But I thought to myself, since this is meant for plumbing, then I would assume that it can take high pressure. But I do not advise it. It might destroy your component. It might leak. I mean, I wanted to try something new. I wanted to see if it worked, and it does. Now, if you do that, I advise you to get brass, because I do know there's certain metals that you cannot mix, especially with the components that is inside here, and also that the cooling liquid has. But it is a very smart idea on getting yourself a drain plug. Drain plug will help you and save you a lot in the end. The first time I did it, I did not make a drain plug, and I regretted it ever since. So then I put in a drain plug, and it makes things so much easier on how to drain it, especially if you need to change anything in your computer. Also, on another note, I will say that it is definitely a lot easier if you have one of these. This is a squeezable bottle, and it has a little tiny straw to go in the top of this one. This one is a Thermaltake. Most of the water pumps that you get will have one of these. It makes it way easier on putting this in and also putting the liquid in. By the way, I do stream on Twitch. If you have any comments or concerns on custom looping, the link will be in the description. Sorry, I kind of have a sniffles. There we go, that's better. No more sniffles. But yes, I do stream on Twitch. If you have any comments, concerns on any of this stuff, or if you think that I might have missed something, make sure to put in the comments here as well. But join me over on Twitch and we can talk about certain things that you'd like. Now, when it comes to water cooling, it can be tedious and it also can take time. So just make sure when you're doing it, take your time, do your schematics, your blueprints on your piece of paper, make sure you write it all down on what you want to do and how you want your loop. There are literally only 5 things in a loop. There's your water pump, your water block, your tubing, your liquid, and your fittings. Should be everything you need. Now I'm going to show you exactly on how to bend a proper tubing, and then I'm going to show you on how to do a very bad tubing. So, first thing is first, make sure you have some tape to put underneath of the heat gun so that it will stay up, and I'm going to do that right now. Next thing you're going to need is the hand soap or any kind of liquid soap, and also your silicone, and also your tubing. Now with everything in place, all we need to do is put the soap on your silicone. So all you need is just literally a dab on your finger, and then what you do is you would literally just rub it on there. Make sure you get the soap all the way down to where you want to end and do your bend so you have extra. Make sure you get the tippy top right there. Definitely works out. And then once you have a pretty decent looped up silicone, what you would do is you would put it inside the tubing like so. Goes in very easily. And then what you would do is turn your heat gun on. Now let's say I want to make the bend probably about like maybe right here, okay? You would turn your heat gun on, probably on high. It makes things easier, but obviously the hotter it gets, this will get hotter too. So at first we're going to show you what good tubing looks like. Now, as you can see, the bend a little bit, what you would want to do is you would want to bend it to the certain angle that you want. And then you would have to hold it there for a little bit. Or you could use the tools, if you'd like, to make your certain bends and angles. It does take some time on how to make this stay solid. If you'd like, you can also blow on it if it helps. I'm not sure if it does. Sometimes I do it just because of a habit. Make sure you leave your silicone in there until it is completely hardened. As you can see, it's starting to harden. It is a little still bendable, but you would want to make sure you get a solid connection. Now you can touch and feel a little bit. Make sure you don't just literally grab it because it's probably pretty hot. Once you get that good solid connection, and you can't literally bend it back anymore, you're all set to go. Pull this out, pop it on the ground, and there you go. You have your solid, good tubing. Now if you feel a flat surface, no bubbles, it's pretty solid. That is good tubing. Now I'm going to show you on bad tubing, which is the bubbles. So what we would do again, we have our silicone. Get a little soap on our finger again. We know this method. Put it on here. So here we are, we have our tubing. We would pop this inside, like so. And then you would turn on your heat gun again. Now this is your bad tubing. Bad tubing as in, you see all those little tiny little bubbles? That's bad. Especially all the thickness in there, you don't want those. It's pretty bad. Meaning you're not going to have a solid connection. There's going to be stuff possibly leaking through these. And that's just, and it's all bowing up. It's just, this is junk now. As you can see, that is very bad. As you can see, it's bending and ripping and almost breaking. You want to make sure you have a good solid connection on it, so then you don't actually bend and bubble it up. You can tell the difference. But yes, that is pretty much how you do tubing. That pretty much sums it up on this video today. Hopefully this helped you. Leave it down in the comments on things that I might have missed, something that could help others if they're a beginner on water cooling. In one video I will show you exactly on how to do water cooling. I will eventually make a video on doing water tubing, so then you can actually see personally how I do it. But that wraps it up for this video. Until then, Silent Reaper signing off.